Good evening, Mizzou fans. Welcome in to State of the Tigers, our weekly show here on PowerMizzou.com every single Monday night. Brought to you by our buddy James Carlton at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, Missouri. You can check James out at carltoninsurance.net, also on Facebook at facebook.com/Carlton Insurance, or give James' office a call at 314-961-4800. I can promise you, I know from personal experience, he's got competitive rates. And by competitive, I mean better than the place I used to be. So James can save you some money. He is going to donate a little bit of money to Mizzou's NIL efforts. If you just call him, get a quote, and tell him you heard about him here on PowerMizzou.com. So we would appreciate you doing that. I am Gabe DeArmond. That is Drew King on the other side of your screen. Drew, I appreciate you taking a break from your Dennis Gates takes the Florida State head coaching job story to join us here on the show tonight.
Yeah, no problem, Gabe. I have some good news aside from the FSU. Okay. The party poppers came in. So let me get this out the way real quick. We ready?
I'm ready. Go ahead. I have a question.
There we go. Go for it.
Okay. Not bad. Were those the poppers or were those cannons?
These are the regular poppers. I have not gotten to the cannon yet. Okay. So that first one was just our regular, party popper. This one, more good news, Gabe. De'Aaron Fox is now a San Antonio Spur. So that's a personal one.
Okay, that one was a little strange. I don't know how I feel about that one. Something flew out behind your ear, but
perfect.
We'll workshop it. We'll get the cannons. We'll get there.
Yeah.
All right, so we are actually giving Drew just a half show tonight, so we want to get straight to it. Going to have Eric Edholm from NFL.com here about 7:30 to talk Mizzou prospects in the NFL draft. So on a serious note, let's just put this out there at the beginning. As Sam Thomas points it out, came in here an hour early to point it out. It's been on our message board. It's been on Twitter. Leonard Hamilton is retiring at Florida State. For approximately 2 years, I would say, minority of Missouri fans have concerned themselves that if Leonard Hamilton were to retire or get fired, Dennis Gates would return to the place where he was an assistant coach for a long time under Leonard Hamilton and coached Florida State. I have only one statement about this, and then I will let you go where you want to go with it. Dennis Gates has a job that is far better than being the head basketball coach at Florida State University. That is the extent of my analysis on this. Is there any more analysis needed?
Not really. I mean, yeah, I think that it's not necessarily an opportunity that Dennis Gates would jump at, and maybe not one that CY would necessarily jump at either. I know that there's some speculation that he might be interested. I remember the first year we were at the NCAA tournament, me and Dave Matter were talking to CY about like, hey, would you ever be interested in it? And I think he told us they would have to build a statue of Leonard Hamilton outside the arena for him to take that job. So I'm not sure that that's really going to happen or not. But yeah, that's kind of all I had to say about it too. We're a long way off from that even being a possibility. So I'm kind of focused on the season for right now.
Drew, we don't focus on what's going to happen now. We like to focus on what might and probably won't happen months from now. This is the way of the internet. In all seriousness, though, like Dennis Gates, look, nobody ever says never, right? I don't know Dennis Gates personally. Like, I know this will shock you, Drew. We do not hang out when we're not at basketball.
Surprising.
Dennis and I do not go on social gatherings. Our wives are not friends. But like CY, you just said, like, he may not be interested. I don't know that Florida State would, like, I don't know that the interest from Florida State is there.
Yeah.
I think it's like he's been a head coach before, but it's been a long time. And let's be honest, man, I understand why, but it didn't go all that well.
Right. So that's the thing is, like, not only would there maybe not be interest from the coach's side, but there also might not be interest from the Florida State side. Like, some of the names I've seen come out today, none of them were really Dennis Gates or Charlton Young from any of the national reporters out there. So, like I said, we're a long way off though.
Yeah. I want it on the record, and I texted Drew this. The number one name on my list is Will Wade. I think Will Wade's Florida State's head coach at the end of this year.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Everything he did is legal. Might as well go hire him.
Yeah.
Legal now. Maybe not legal when he did it, but that's a different conversation.
How is McNeese State this year? I haven't even looked.
No idea. Absolutely no idea. Mike, I don't know if Mike posted that before you shot the confetti cannon off or not, but we got the confetti cannon. We got the imitation confetti cannon. First show at the NCAA tournament, we're shooting off the real thing. All right, so let's get to this because, like I said, we don't have as long tonight with Drew, and I know everybody's fired up about basketball. If you got questions and comments, put them in the chat. We will get to them. Get to as many as we can tonight. We're gonna do 2 live shows tonight. We'll be live, or not tonight. 2 live shows this week. After this, we will be live after both the Tennessee and the Texas A&M games. Drew, I was following the Mizzou Mississippi State game. I was not watching every minute like you were. You have covered every game Dennis Gates has coached at Missouri. Was that the best one?
So the other one that popped in my mind was the Iowa State game from 2 years ago, and that was another 27-point win in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. And I think you asked Dennis Gates after that game as well, like, do you think your team's playing pretty good? And he said no. And I followed it up with, well, like, Kobe, is that your best game of the season so far? And he didn't want to answer it because Dennis Gates was right there. So, yeah, like, I think that the Mississippi State game, at least one of the top 2 on his resume, right? And probably top 1, considering where Mississippi State was ranked. Like, they were never really in that game at all, Gabe. I think they very briefly held the lead or made a little bit of a comeback, but that was pretty much a dominant win from buzzer to buzzer or tip-off to buzzer.
Yeah. I do want to point out before I offer my thoughts that Mike is actually pissed because
I'm sorry, Mike.
Cannon. So apparently the 2 poppers did not make up for it not being a cannon. I just wanted on the record. So I mean, look, the moment we do this a lot. We sit next to each other at the home games, or we text even during the road games, and like a lot of times there'll be a play, and you go, "Oh, they're like, hang on, I know what's going to happen now," right? As soon as I saw Caleb Grill make a 40-footer, you just go, oh, this is their night. Like, they're not going to lose tonight.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing is, like, Caleb Grill doesn't come in till the media timeout, and I think Mizzou was already up pretty big at that point. And then Caleb Grill came in, and that's when Mississippi State had their first, like, little burst, their only burst of the game. And I don't think that they were able to take the lead again. And once Caleb Grill started hitting shots, that's when you knew, like, oh, it's not going to be Mississippi State's day, because for him to, let them back in the game a little bit and then to take it away almost immediately, that's like soul crushing for a team. So yeah, like Tamar Bates had a great game. Josh Gray had a great game, but Caleb Grill, like, took the soul out of Mississippi State.
Well, and the crazy thing about it to me is, like, we talk about in the gym range, right? But that was not like a heave. That was not a desperation. I mean, it was desperation to beat the shot clock, but that did not look like a desperation shot. That looked like he just goes, I know I'm 40 feet away, but I'm just going to pull up and do this thing. Like, this is what he does. He just practices that shot, I guess.
It was a heat check, right? And he was hot that day. That's what he was checking. Yeah. How hot am I?
And Freeway Jared points out, and Jared, appreciate the super chat. Appreciate you being here. Does anybody remember last preseason when Nick Honor said Caleb Grill is the best shooter in the country? Was that a quote? Do you remember that quote?
I don't remember that quote, but
I remember people from Missouri saying, like, singing Caleb Grill's praises and talking about what a great shooter he was. I don't remember that specific one. Not saying it didn't happen, just don't remember that specific one.
Right. But shouts to Nick Honor if he did say that, because he was right.
Well, and it just add it to the list of things that, last year kind of the best thing. Well, the best thing about this year is that Missouri's really good and they're a top 15 team, if not a top 10 team. But the best big picture thing to me about this year is that it shows last year was the anomaly. Dennis Gates has been a head coach for 6 years, and that's the only one that was below expectations. Now, it was greatly below expectations, but 5 out of 6 tells me, hey, you know what? Even like Barry Bonds struck out sometimes, but he didn't usually strike out.
Right.
He felt pretty good with him at the plate when the game on the line. So I think, 5 out of 6 tells me Dennis Gates knows what he's doing. And last year was just a perfect storm of suck.
Well, hey, Caleb Grill misses threes sometimes too, but you got to feel pretty good every time he's shooting the ball right now. And Gabe, here's the other thing too, is like the success of this season, a lot of it has to do with the guys who were on last year's team, right? Like Caleb Grill was in the game when they lost to Jackson State. And so again, like last year feels pretty fluky in retrospect because of all the success they're having this season, and specifically with the returners. So, and again, like we're not trying to say they would have made the NCAA tournament or that they would have had like a whole lot of success or winning record in the SEC, anything like that, but they wouldn't have been 0-19, right? And I think that's the thing that really made people sour on Dennis Gates, was just how bad it got down the stretch.
Yeah, like even 3-16, nobody was having the conversation that they were having last year. T-Rise says, I'm going to go on the record now. He's the best shooter in the country. You can write that down. Nick Honor to Dave Matter. So look at Dave Matter doing that Mizzou basketball PR even before it was his job, man. Not bad. No, I again wasn't doubting that he said it. Just didn't remember it specifically. There was somewhere I was going to go. You just said something that made me think of something, and I completely forgot it. So I'm not going to go there anymore.
Was it the returners? Was it the shooting?
Yes, it was the returners. So I think it is interesting that not only like he used the transfer portal, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like a brand new team. Right. He did a lot of this with some of the guys he had last year. The Basketball Writers Association just put out their 50 candidates for the Oscar Robertson Trophy for like the best player in the country midseason. There's not one Missouri guy on it. So he didn't do it with a total overhaul. He's not doing it with NBA players. He's not doing it with All-American players. And yet here they are, and there are people that think Missouri's underrated at 15. Like, if that's not Coach of the Year material, I'm not sure what is.
Yeah, I mean, for them, like this is kind of what I'm writing about for tomorrow. Is just like we keep moving the goalposts on this team, right? Because every time we say like, oh, their ceiling is probably like 10 wins in the SEC, well, all of a sudden, like, they're knocking on the door of 10 wins, right? So we say like, okay, maybe it's 12 wins. 12 wins might be a little bit underwhelming at this point, right? Because they're already halfway there and we're not even halfway through the SEC season. So I think that this is absolutely like a Coach of the Year kind of run. You can make a case for Bruce Pearl, and I think it's a valid one, but Dennis Gates is right there with him.
And I don't think you can make a case for anybody else in the SEC at this point.
Right, because we were talking about like maybe Mark Byington, but I feel like that kind of lost steam after they lost to Oklahoma. And
not Mark Pope now.
Not Mark Pope anymore. I thought maybe Todd Golden, but like obviously he's got some other non-basketball reasons that probably won't happen. So I think it's kind of a two-man race right now.
And interestingly enough, because I was listening to Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander on the CBS Eye on College Basketball this morning, and like Norlander brought Gates up as a top 5 national coach of the year. Like there's a world in which Dennis Gates finishes second for national coach of the year, but does not win SEC coach of the year.
Right.
I mean, not out of the question because look, Auburn is doing historic things. So you brought it up there, and I kind of addressed it in my column this morning. What is we move it every week. So what is this week's ceiling for Missouri basketball?
Okay, so after the Mississippi State game, Mizzou moved up to 23rd on KenPom, and he's now got them projected to go 23-8 overall and 12-6 in conference. And I said on the board, I don't see 4 more losses on the schedule. Like Tennessee and Texas A&M, those are going to be tough games. They're winnable, though. Alabama's going to be a tough game. It's winnable, though, because you got them at home. Kentucky, same thing. You get them at home. There's not a team on the schedule that Mizzou can't beat, doesn't have the talent to beat. So he's got them projected to lose to Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, and then Oklahoma on the road. But I don't see them losing to Georgia. I don't see them losing to Oklahoma. So yeah,
I was going to say I relatively strongly disagree with the Oklahoma one. I could see Georgia. Good teams have lost down there. I could see Vandy. Good teams have lost there.
Yeah,
right. But I could see A&M at home. I could see Bama at home.
Here's the crucial thing about it, though. In all of the rest of their 10 games left, he's only giving them less than a 50% chance to win against Tennessee and against Oklahoma.
And literally a week ago, the Tennessee game was 14% and Mississippi State was 19%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how much what Missouri is doing has changed people's minds. For those of you who didn't read my column this morning, first of all, shame on you. You're not even allowed in the street. Go read the column. You can't come here until you've read it. But I mean, I use the Michael Jordan quote that the ceiling is the roof, right? There's no ceiling for this team. Missouri should legitimately go into the NCAA tournament as one of the teams thinking, hey, we can win this thing. Now, that is not a prediction they will win it. And I think there are, I'm not asking you to name the teams. Top of your head, give me a ballpark number. How many teams do you think should go into the NCAA tournament thinking we can get to the Final Four?
Thinking you can get to the Final Four? I'd say probably 10.
You would say that few? I would say 25.
Okay. Yeah, 25, sure.
Oh, the
Final Four is hard.
Final Four is hard. But the only reason is I think there are only 2 teams that if they don't get to the Final Four, you look at it and say, well, that was bad. Duke and Auburn are elite teams. Right now, Iowa State and Houston, Florida and Tennessee are 3, 4, 5, and 6. Do I look at any of those teams and say, man, I will be shocked if they don't make the Final Four?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
That's fair.
So if you're Missouri, let's say you're a 4 seed, right? And you run into 1 seed Iowa State in the Sweet 16. It's a tough game, but you're going to have to win tough games to get to the Final Four. But by no means is it a game I look at and say, well, no chance at the Final Four because we got to play Iowa State.
Yeah.
So that's why, I think if you are look again, and okay, I admit I'm going to say this partly to throw shade, but also because it's 100% true. When Kansas blew a 20-point lead to Baylor on Saturday, I both got and sent texts that said, it's funny what can happen when everybody's allowed to pay players, right? And that we're seeing it in college football. SMU's in the college football playoff and Alabama isn't, because now everybody can do what the powerhouses have always done. It's happening in college basketball. The talent is spreading out. So I think there's 2 truly elite teams, but I think what that leads to is if you're a 6 or a 7 seed, as of this morning, Missouri might still be a 6 seed, right? They could make the Final Four. Look at the other teams in the 6 seed range. They could. Are you telling me Ole Miss is incapable of making a run to the Final Four?
That's what I was going to say.
So.
I went to go look at who are those teams outside the top 20, and it's Wisconsin probably could make a Final Four. Illinois, I've seen Illinois be really
100% Illinois is good enough to make a Final Four.
So Michigan too, Michigan, I know they haven't had great track record in the Big Ten so far, but like they're a pretty good team. So yeah, I think that you're right. If you're top 25, Final Four isn't out of the question for you.
Right. And once you're to that point, why wouldn't you think you have a chance to win the national title?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so again, I'm not saying Missouri is like Missouri's been playing basketball for well over 100 years and has not made a Final Four. So I understand the Final Four didn't exist for all of those years. But I'm not telling you it's going to happen. I'm simply saying they should go into the NCAA tournament thinking there is no, like, this is the first time since Dennis Gates has said since day one, our goal is to be the last team standing in fill in the blank city. I think it's San Antonio this year. Yeah. Yep. But like, you know, year one was, I don't know, New Orleans or whatever it was. And last year was whatever it was. He says that at the beginning of every year. Sunday morning was the first day I woke up thinking, yeah, that's reasonable. I believe it.
Yeah. Shoot. I mean, we kind of said it about the team 2 years ago, right? We were like, this team either goes on a Final Four run or is going to get bounced in the first round, upset, right? So, yeah, for this team to be top 15, thank you, Trey.
That's the analysis they pay for, Drew. For those listening, we put the quote on the screen. The Final Four is hard.
It is hard.
So, yeah.
No, but yeah, like I think that Final Four is not out of the question here by any means. I'm going to pull up Bart Torvik real quick because he'll usually give teams like what is their percent chance to make it there. And I know like
I do know while you're pulling that up, I do know that someone had posted on our board the betting line for Missouri to make the Final Four 2 weeks ago was plus 4,100. It is now plus 1,700.
Okay, well there you go. Okay, so here we go. Earlier in January, Bart Torvik gave Mizzou like a 10% chance to make a run to the Elite Eight. That number is up to 23.2% now, and he's given them a 10.6% chance to make the Final Four. So, and like those
seems high.
Yeah, and like the numbers are obviously a little aggressive there. Like Auburn's got a 38.9% chance. So take that for what you will. But like if you told me Mizzou's got a 1 in 10 chance to make the Final Four, like not out of the question. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, we're going to try to go kind of rapid fire on some of these comments. Sam Thomas says, as long as we're not in Auburn's region, most teams on selections. And look, I agree. You don't want to be in Auburn's region. But also, here's the beauty of the NCAA tournament. If you're a 3 seed, you may never get to Auburn, right? Like, and I don't mean that because you might not get there. They might not get there.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about being wide open, and it's why I wouldn't judge, like, yes, 25 teams go in thinking we can make the Final Four. At least 5 of them will lose their first game. Like, that's the NCAA tournament. Doesn't mean you were, like, Missouri's 2012 team was good enough to go into the NCAA tournament thinking we can make the Final Four. They were also bad enough on the wrong day to lose to Norfolk State. Like, that's the tournament. And it's why you love it until your team is the victim of that game. And then you absolutely hate it.
Yeah, I've had 2 instances where I filled out my bracket and the team I picked as the champion lost in the first round. So
I had that happen once. Do you remember who yours were?
It was Michigan State. I want to say 2015, 2016 with the Denzel Valentine team.
Okay.
And then Kentucky a couple of years ago, and they got bounced in the first round. I was really disappointed.
Mine was Georgetown losing to Dunk City.
Dang.
As a 2 seed. Yeah. So I had Georgetown win the national title that year. That was really dumb on my part. Like, I deserve that. Okay. Sam, what are the chances we can get a 4 seed? And I think he's talking NCAA because like as of today, I think the chances are better than not. Missouri's a top 4 team in the SEC.
I would agree with that. Like, I think I told you they can win both of these next 2 games and they'd still be tied for 6th place in the conference. So top lose 4, lose both. Oh, sorry. But yeah, like, so top 4 seed in the SEC, very realistic. Top 4 in the NCAA, I think they're there right now. I know that Jerry Palm had them as a 4 seed. I think Joe Lunardi has them as a 5 or a 6, but Like they're either there now or they're not very far off.
Right. I think they're close enough that, like, if they go 2-0 this week, I think they're there. If they finish top 4 in the SEC, I think they are a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think that's
like, I think those goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Earlier, I've got to go way back to find this, but okay, here we go. There were some people kind of asking about Ant Robinson, and we asked Dennis Gates, you asked him today, okay, what still needs to improve? And he said, well, all our guys haven't had their best day on the same day. Obviously, Ant struggled a little bit. Now, I don't know, concern? Does it matter? Like, what's your take here?
I would say if Mizzou wants to hit its ceiling, it's going to need a lot better play from Ant. I don't know how much of the first, 10 minutes of the game you saw, Gabe, but like it was pretty rough for Ant. I think he had 6 turnovers, all of them in the first half. So one of them was like a charge where I thought the guy sold it a little bit. It didn't seem like there was a whole lot of contact, but like still some of the passes he was throwing was not good. So like that would be kind of my biggest red flag. And I wrote about that a couple of weeks ago where like, a big part of March Madness is you have to have good guard play. And Tony Perkins has been good. Ant Robinson has had good games, but I'm worried a little bit about the consistency out of that group.
Okay, I'm going to take the contrary. You could be right, but I'm going to take the contrary opinion because of what Mizzou 1755 says. Perkins has picked his game up. I think, like, yes, you want A+ Anthony Robinson, and he makes you better, no question. I think you can make a run without it. Because if he's not playing well, I think you just ride Perkins. And, Dennis said today he wants Marquez Warwick to step up, or whether it's T.O. Barrett even if you put T.O. Barrett in and say, we know you're not going to score, just don't shoot us in the foot like is happening at Mississippi State. So again, he makes you better. But like when Dennis is talking about the ceiling, he says, I'm waiting for every player to play their best game on the same day. Well, like I'm waiting for a pitcher to throw a perfect game every time. But it usually, like, in an entire college basketball season, there may be one coach on one night who says, I think my team played as well as it can.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about, I don't know, 9,000 college basketball games. There's one or two maybe in a year. So I don't think, I think what you want is as many players as possible to get as close as possible to that. But the perfect game does not exist. So I think when Dennis is answering that question, he's saying, well, I'm judging us based on the perfect game scale. Cool. You're never going to get there. Like, you can tell us every day my team can get better because you're never going to play and coach a perfect game. I just think Ant, like, he is inconsistent. He is going to be inconsistent this year. And I think the biggest part of Dennis's job is when it's going the wrong way, figure it out quickly and get him out.
Yeah. I was just thinking, like, do you think Mizzou would win the championship and Dennis Gates would still say, yeah, we didn't play very well?
Yes, 100%. I think Dennis Gates would, like, I don't know if you remember a few years ago, it was like his 5th national title. And like literally during the post-game celebration, Nick Saban in the post-game interview said, yeah, I got to go recruiting tomorrow. Like, he wasn't even having fun. I think Dennis Gates would have fun. I think we would maybe see him smile, but I think he would absolutely say in the post-game press conference, here are our 8 core values and we can play better. Yeah. Now, there's no game tomorrow, but that is how he is wired. I think he would say.
That's fair. I mean, like, I just wonder, like, what is it actually for him? Like, what would qualify as everybody playing well? Like, can nobody miss a shot? Do they have to go 100% with no turnovers?
Yeah, like, what if, do you have to win 117-0?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's my question.
It's a good question, and it would be a good question to ask him, but like, he wouldn't answer it, so it doesn't matter. All right, so let's finish up before we bring Eric Edholm in. He's maybe our first guest on record who intentionally got into the green room early to listen to a little Mizzou basketball talk.
Oh wow!
But before we bring Eric on and switch over to football, let's finish it up with this: at Tennessee on Wednesday, home against A&M on Saturday. Either, neither, both is a win.
Either.
I think that's most likely.
Yeah.
I think 1 out of 2, because I think Missouri's capable of winning in Knoxville. If I had to handicap it, I would say they probably won't. But I think it's almost a situation where if they do win in Knoxville, it increases the likelihood of a little bit of a letdown on Saturday against A&M.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about how like 1-3 in this 3-game stretch with Mississippi State would be an accomplishment. But again, we're moving the goalposts on them, right? So Texas A&M at home, you're 15-0 in Mizzou Arena this season. Like that's one that you can probably come away with a victory in. And then like Tennessee, 2 seasons ago, Dre Golston hit a shot from the logo. And there's another guy on this team who's hitting shots from the logo this season. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, look, if Missouri hits another 40-footer to beat Tennessee at the buzzer in Knoxville, forget it. I'll just come on here next week and tell you Missouri's going to the Final Four. That's fine. We'll do that. So,
okay.
All right, Drew, you got half the night off, man. We're going to let you go.
All right.
Have a good one.
Say hi to Eric for me.
All right, we'll do. And look, through the magic of technology, like Drew just turned into Eric Edholm right on your screen right there. Eric, for those who don't know, NFL.com covers the NFL draft all year round. Mizzou grad from a while ago. He does this show because every now and then he will text me a Mizzou question in the middle of a game and I answer it, so he feels obligated.
And I got to apologize. I'm wearing my reading glasses. I don't do with night vision anymore, man. We're getting to that age. I know I've seen you with the glasses once in a while, but man, I got to get something better than the $4 pair I bought at Walgreens the other day, just because.
I have to have real glasses because I couldn't see my computer screen if I wasn't wearing contacts. I couldn't read the comments or anything. But I don't yet have reading glasses. The only way in which I am not old is that I can still see things up close.
That is a superpower at my age right now, or at least I feel that way anyway.
All right, so again, we bring Eric on once a year in the spring to talk NFL draft and Mizzou guys and all that. Fresh off Senior Bowl week, perfect timing where you went to the Senior Bowl and actually didn't see a single Missouri guy go through a practice. So perfect timing there. Exactly.
Yeah, it was funny. Day one, I believe I don't want to be wrong about this, but I believe it was. Does he go by JR Blood now?
Yes, which I did not discover until well into the season because I thought he was Harold Blood. Yeah. Right, exactly. That's how I remember hearing his name the first time, and I was standing behind this young man. I didn't know why he was there because I didn't know what the circumstance or whatever, but he was there, and there were a few other guys wearing Mizzou gear there. No one who actually suited up, no one who actually played. No drink appearance. He used to, every year was a big deal down there. I know he was out on the road recruiting and all that. But, so Armand Membu showed up. He weighed in, and he got sick. And Ian Rapport, who works with me, right, yeah, who's at NFL Network with me, is reporting that it was an illness that came up during the week and just never got better. And I think you and I were talking the way his stock has gone the last sort of 2 months or whatever. I think it's all right, man. I think he'll be fine. Right. Whatever. I'm not saying he wasn't sick, but there was, after he weighed in and measured in at, what was it, about 6'3" and a half, something like that, 332 pounds and 34-inch arms. The only thing he really had to answer at the Senior Bowl was, am I big enough to be an offensive tackle in the NFL? And he answered that because as far as we used to tell kids all the time that we're going through recruiting, you do what makes you look good. If you are a kid who's going to go to camp and you're going to look good doing these drills and running fast in front of these coaches, do that.
Yep.
If that's not your strength, if your strength is on the game tape, don't go to the camps. Just send them your tape and get the offers that way. So I'm not saying Armand wouldn't have done well there, but he didn't need to do it.
Right. No, there's definitely an eye test quotient to it now. It's a little different than they used to do it. I'm old enough to have seen the meat market live where they actually had the weigh-in and scouts and media would be sitting there. A lot of media didn't go. I always felt like it was a gold mine because you actually could meet these guys at places like this. So you go and there's 400 of us in this old convention center, and they trot these guys in skivvies across the stage and measure their arms. It was a bizarre practice. Jim Nagy, the director, got rid of it. But behind the scenes, yes, the measurements said that he met the benchmarks. 33 inches for arm length is kind of the minimum. There are a couple guys below that, yeah, but that's sort of the number where if you're ahead of that, you're pretty good. 6'4" is usually the height, but I've never heard height as a major component. I mean, yeah, once you get in the 6'3s and 6'2s, you're probably playing inside, but he just looked the part this season at right tackle and did everything he needed to do and was clearly their best lineman. I didn't necessarily know that going into the year, but as they seem to have a little, you can probably attest to it more than I can, but like seem a little chemistry issues on the left side. And, and then he just kept standing out time and time again. And I felt like when you texted me and said, what are your thoughts? I mean, I think I originally said, I was like, top 50, top 75, and that was pretty quickly clear. I think he's going to zoom past that, man. And so, like you said, if you've already kind of won enough people over, then how much more winning over do you need to do prior to the combine, which is, sort of a must in some ways.
And also, like, we've assumed literally everybody at Missouri for 3 years has sat and said, yeah, it's cool he's playing right tackle here. He'll move inside when he goes to the NFL.
Right, exactly.
Yep. Obviously, guards don't get drafted 10th overall or whatever. You have to be able to play tackle. But look, I am watching a team that I hope is about to win another Super Bowl with a Hall of Fame guard playing tackle. So is the ability to play both an added bonus?
Absolutely. Yeah. And look at, it's true. Most guards don't go that high, but there have been some exceptions. Quentin Nelson for the Colts went number 6. Peter Skoronski was a college tackle and a very good one at Northwestern a few years back, who was like, the arm length was barely there, the height, all that. And he wasn't a super thick kid, but he's been a really good player at left guard, at least when he's been healthy. So, he could move out to left tackle. And yeah, like you said, the Joe Thuney example, I mean, he was a college left tackle, I believe, at North Carolina State. And then Patriots drafted him, kicked him inside, turned him into All-Pro. One of the worst decisions by Bill Belichick to let a guy go. I mean, I didn't understand it at the time, but hey, Chiefs went out, and yeah, you have a guy who all of a sudden, maybe he's, not a top 10 left tackle in the NFL, but he can handle it, and he's doing a great job. So, I think it's sort of like the best, play your best 5. At some point, you're going to have injuries up front, and that's what your offensive line is going to have to do. So if you've played a couple of them, or if you have the right body type, like this kid from North Dakota State has played all 5 positions and was great down there at the Senior Bowl this week, Gray Zabel. I could see him getting in the first round just for that. That's a great thing to be able to do as a blocker.
All right, so this kind of will help transition to the next guy. We have assumed for 12 months, maybe longer, that Luther Burden was the first Missouri player who will hear his name called in April.
Yeah.
You think that's still true?
I didn't have it that way in my last mock. Now, you and I know late January, early February mocks are good for one thing, and that's like throwing in the trash as soon as you read them. I mean, we all kind of know it's not going to happen that way. And I love doing them. I really do. For me, it's like working out. You go to the gym that first time, you're like, I'm not feeling it today, So that was my mock 1 where I had, I think, Membo going 11th, I think, or 10th or 11th to the Bears or Niners. I don't remember which now. And I had Burden slip into the end of round 1. And now part of it was like, I wasn't going to put a first round mock out and not have his name in there because, everyone sort of knows his name. But like, I had him 31st to the Eagles, and, they always seem to have guys fall to them. So there was kind of a wink joke there in there somewhere. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that he's this pristine prospect, even if this is a year where wide receiver talent's lacking compared to what we've seen the last, most of the last 5-6 years.
Well, and the thing that I always think with wide receivers, it's not to the extreme it is with quarterback, but like there just aren't many teams who, hey, we need a wide receiver in round 1. So like if he gets past Carolina and New Orleans right there at 8-9, then logically, there might be 6 or 7 more picks before it can go. And if that team likes somebody else, then it might be 24, 25, just because teams don't need or aren't picking a wide out there. So give me the scout take on Luther. Like, what are they going to love about him? And if it is a little bit later. Like, I think most people think he's round 1 still, but even if it is back half of round 1 or slipping toward that, hey, is he going to go round 1? Why is it?
Yeah, I mean, again, I would, if I just had to just throw a range out there, like, he'd have to run a pretty darn good 40, assuming he runs a 40. I don't know, I mean, but some guys opt not to, or injured or whatever. But like, if he blazes a 40, which I don't see Luther as a blazer. Like, I see him as a great run after the kit. What's that?
I think he could get in the 4.4s, but I don't know that he can get in the 4.3s.
Exactly. I would say, high 4.4s would be terrific for him. That's what we would expect, I think. Low 4.4s, tremendous. That would be the peak performance for him, I think. But yeah, I think it's really that kind of Deebo Samuel-like running back, wide receiver and running back spotting, I should say. A lot teams still have, it's not quite as much as college football, but quick screens and little quick handoffs. We've seen tight ends get involved in the run game now. Teams are using a lot more of that type of stuff that Luther can do. I mean, heck, we never really saw him as a punt returner that much. I mean, that was the thing in high school. Like, I can attest to it.
He doesn't catch the ball in the air.
Well, yeah, that's going to be the thing. Like, can you get something out of him as a punt returner when, it's crazy, man. I thought that was going to be his ultimate superpower coming into college. But yeah, I mean, I think it's there's going to be some interview questions on him on maybe sort of accountability and maturity and all that stuff with the younger players and the diva guys that are going to get the same battery of questions, that those types of players get. And then there'll be some Luther specific stuff that they've either heard from the Mizzou coaches, from area scouts via the Mizzou coaches, maybe, I don't, from opponents, whatever. I mean, they'll source together all the little bits of information that all the area scouts get throughout the year. One little nugget doesn't help you until February, and then all of a sudden you put the puzzle piece together. So I think some of that will be a big part of it. The production drop off, I don't think is a huge deal. He was still able to make contributions in some ways, but I mean, just back to the round 1 question. I mean, you don't see a lot of sub 6 foot receivers going round 1 unless they have something dynamic about them. I think Luther's yards after the catch and breaking abilities, but do scouts agree? And are they willing to kind of, live with some other things that are less than ideal, I guess, just size wise and speed wise?
Well, and one of my favorite things about the NFL draft every year, or at least when Missouri has guys in position to get drafted, is watching, people who cover the NFL draft kind of discover these things in real time. Right. Because I've been watching these kids play for 4 years, right? Like, my favorite thing ever was after building Blaine Gabbert up for like 4 months, all of a sudden after he got picked in the top 10, Todd McShay suddenly going, I don't know if the deep ball's that good. And sometimes he kind of gets happy feet in the pocket. Like, Todd, I could have saved you. Like, call me in February and I would have told you that, right?
Did you watch the Nebraska game, Todd? Right. Yeah, right.
So
yeah.
With Luther, I'm actually going the opposite way. If you go to the combine and you say, 4.51, I'm not picking that kid, I'm going to say, literally turn on any tape from the last 6 years because I've never seen the first guy tackle him. Like, it just doesn't happen.
Yep. That's really, I think, the special trait. And I mean, there's sometimes where you think, gosh, how many tackles did he break to turn a 2-yard loss on this end around into a 6-yard gain? Like, those are the yards that we forget about those. We love the 20-yard plus plays, but it's those that navigating in short spaces, finding those little creases. And when he hits his foot in the ground and goes, that's when that little burst happens too. But yeah, it's like guys who try to ankle tackle him, or if you don't get population of the ball, I mean, that's where he kills you. And, he I think as a goal line weapon, especially a red zone weapon is what I meant to say. Like, that's really appealing. He still scored a lot of touchdowns at Mizzou, even if his, per game receiving numbers weren't amazing other than, 2 seasons ago. So yeah, I mean, I look at that and say, like, I'd love him as a third weapon to start out. I could live with him as a number 2 guy on a team that's not quite as talented. I don't think I would view him as a rookie year go-to option, but he would be part of the mix because look what, the Chiefs do in San Francisco and even the Eagles and everybody, they all divvy it up quite a bit. So.
Well, right. And like every guy in the NFL, it's about where you go, right? Like, is Deebo Samuel somewhere else? No.
Right.
Is Xavier Worthy a 700-yard receiver and a key to a playoff win for anybody but Andy Reid? Probably not.
It's a good call.
Like if he goes and the Saints' new coaching staff doesn't know what the hell they're doing, like he's out of the league in 4 years. But if he goes to the right place, they can find plenty of ways. So those are the two that we're pretty confident are going probably round one, but certainly early.
Yep.
I set the over-under on Mizzou players drafted in this draft at 4.5.
Okay.
Or should I set it at 3.5? What's a more reasonable? Because I personally think Theo Weiss and Johnny Walker are getting drafted.
Probably.
You tell me if you disagree there.
Yeah, it would come down to whether
Brady or is there a fifth guy?
Or is there another guy? Yeah, I'd have to think a little bit about the second half of that question. Let's just
did somebody in round 7 go, hey man, I really like what Nate Noel could do on third down and take a flyer on it or something like that.
He might be a guy that you looked at especially, the what was it, I'm trying to remember the game now where he went crazy and then he kind of got hurt the next week or whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of tape with him, especially last year too, and where he looks like he's got some bursts. So again, another guy, if a good workout happens, you never know. It is a deep running back class, but back to your original question. Yeah, I think we know the first two. Johnny Walker, I've always sort of felt he's a little bit of a hot and cold player, and it sort of disappears for stretches and stuff. But man, the flashes are obvious, and it's sort of like when you're watching the game thinking, where's Johnny Walker been? And then all of a sudden he gets that sack 12 seconds later, So enjoyed him getting Cook in the Shrine game. That was
I've got to interrupt because you have to answer the one question that nobody has answered. How does the Shrine Bowl pick teams? Why are Brady and Johnny Walker not on the same team?
Yeah. So it's kind of been tough the last few years. They have a lot of opt-outs. Okay. So what they end up doing is, they'll invite an initial group, like 50 guys for each team, whatever the number is, 55, 60. And then what if 4 dudes from one position all bail, which sometimes happens. Last year at the Senior Bowl, Braden Fisk was on the national or American team all week, and then he switched to the national for the game. So sometimes there's some funny roster business that goes on because you're, especially of quarterbacks. If you don't have a quarterback, you're in deep trouble. You need 3 at least. So I think that's the best explanation I can offer off the top of my head, out of my, but I think that's probably what happened is that Cook was a late ad and the ad needed to be on this team versus the one. So
gotcha.
That's it. But yeah, I mean, the size questions for him were and maybe just consistency and sort of play to play effort and things like that. I mean, I would say, he's done enough in big moments to get everybody's attention. Seemed to be like one of the best players on the field. Chad Reuter, my colleague, had him as an honorable mention from the game. So he didn't give him the full credit, but he said he did stand out in the game. And, the quarterbacking in these all-star games can be wild sometimes. It can be really good or really bad. And, it seemed like Brady did okay for himself from what I watched. I didn't get to see the whole thing yet. I was coming back from Mobile and having a few drinks that night, so. But no, I mean, Cook's best chance obviously is to sell himself as a winner, the over super zealous prepared number 3 who's gonna watch Patrick Mahomes do every single thing and write down every, like Brady was as a rookie. I mean, I'm not trying to be, I'm serious. He's an athletic guy, arm strength so, but super talented, smart, driven. There's a lot of good qualities there. Played in a lot of big games in the SEC. In a quarterback class full of dart throws and questions, I just feel like, possibly he's a better quarterback than Jalen Milroe. You know what I mean? He could be a 12-year backup as the names Taylor Heineke and Cooper Rush and Mason Rudolph and all those guys. They've got great jobs and they're good at what they do. So, Walker.
What it really comes down to me for him is, do teams like look? Brady's not a starting quarterback in the NFL.
No.
Nobody's picking Brady Cook thinking he's ever a single game starter in the NFL. So
Right.
do teams use a 6th or a 7th round draft pick on a guy like that, or do they just go, "Hey, we bring that guy in undrafted"? And
Yeah, that's more likely the case. I mean, it's hard to say. It depends how much upside they feel like they have physically, and obviously, Brady's not like some strapping, but he's a good athlete, I think, and I think maybe that's sort of an underrated element of his game. I'm not going to say you designed a read option offense for him, but I mean, he can obviously do it. And, so I don't know. That's a fair question to ask, because if the upside is so limited, or you feel like he's always going to be a backup, maybe you do it if you have a plethora of draft picks. Some teams will have, compensatory picks in the 7th round, and they like a guy enough and don't want to pay the bonus money to try to sign him as a UDFA. Maybe you do it that way, because sometimes 7th round picks end up being, I don't think we can outpay team X, who will love this guy, and they'll draft an undraftable grade guy, but they like him enough for one thing or something. So you never rule it out.
The one Mizzou guy we haven't talked about. So about this time last year, probably a little earlier than this last year, but I reached out to you and said, hey, like, Steele Weiss, a draft guy, and I remember you telling me he probably doesn't get drafted if he goes this year. Comes back, 800 yards, Missouri's leading receiver, team captain, clear leader of this team. Like,
no doubt.
Look, I'm sure there are guys in the country who made themselves more money than Theo Weiss did this year. But if the guys I follow, he made the best decision of anybody, because he just got an NFL Combine invite today. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, in fact, when I first reached out to people to ask, what last year, 2023 season, late in the year, what was the sense on him? We're talking about a former 5-star recruit, a guy who played at Oklahoma. Obviously this isn't just some Johnny come lately, and so I just sort of thought, I could see like maybe early day 3 or something, or maybe, whatever, round 4, maybe. I was just sort of guessing, and they were saying he should go back to school. 2 different people told me that. And I was like, geez, oh, okay, man, thud. Now, it's since come out, he's got small hands, 8.5-inch hands are a little bit, that's below the mark that you normally want for a receiver. Now, not everybody has these giant 10-inch mitts like I do. I don't have giant 10-inch mitts. But, yeah, I mean, it is a tradesy position, so sometimes those outlier numbers can kind of stick out like a sore thumb, not to misplay that metaphor, but he's got the height. He's got the, I think, requisite athleticism. I don't think he's a burner, but boy, there were a few times in his career where he outran people, and I thought, I didn't know he could do that. Not a lot, but enough to make me think, geez. And like you said, I felt like he stepped up in a big way for a team that, if you're going to take Luther out of the game, we need somebody to catch some balls, and he did that seemingly every game, especially when Cook was there. So,
tell me what you think about this middle class DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, like good body control, kind of lanky guy. Yeah. I mean,
contested catches, and look, I'm not saying
we're like lower end. We're talking about Hall of Famer,
right? Like D-Hop's Hall of Famer. I'm not saying, but same style, not that good.
Yeah, no, the comp, right? Exactly. Yeah, I mean that's a good way to say, because he's got good body control, and tough that he had the injury. I haven't really seen. I know he wasn't able to play at the East West, and wasn't able to quite finish it out in the bowl game. But I mean, he was playing well then, and yeah, I mean, I've always sort of been a little bit surprised that more people aren't higher on him. But again, his 40 could end up being kind of a telling number. I mean, if he runs 4 or 5 something, I think he'll be fine.
All right, we'll do 2 general draft questions, and I'm going to finish it out by letting you give your Dennis Gates Missouri basketball hot takes if you'd like to do that. So look, the NFL draft in general, not related to Missouri, is always popular on our board.
Yep.
I am the GM of the Tennessee Titans. I actually have a good friend who is a Titans fan. Convince me why I do not take Abdul Carter with the number 1 pick. Like, I love that. He's the best player in this draft, and I don't think it's close.
That's who I mocked to them, and like, don't get me wrong, Travis Hunter is just a unicorn. I mean, he's the weird, he's the one of one evaluation, but I'm with you.
120 snaps in the NFL.
100%. you got to pick a spot for him, and he can moonlight in the other one, And interestingly, real quick, I know we're talking Carter, but a couple conversations I had, I kind of assumed that most people would see Hunter as a corner who could moonlight on offense. Sort of, I've now heard two people who aren't with the Titans or Browns, but still two people who I think have a good sort of pulse on the league, but said they would do it the other way, receiver first, that he's that good as a receiver and they could use him as like a red zone or whatever. Anyway, but even with the enticement of him, I think Abdul Carter, maybe he doesn't step in day one as ridiculous as Micah Parsons does, but maybe he does.
Maybe he does.
He's basically playing a new position this year, and he took about 4 games to kind of settle in. There was a little bit of, what's wrong with Abdul? And he takes over. He's a freak. He's a really, really gifted player. And yeah, I mean, Penn State's had some ridiculous athletes in the last 10 years. I mean, they've recruited some absolute goofy athletes, and he's right up there with some of the best.
All right, I'm not qualified to assess quarterbacks for the NFL draft. I make no bones about that. They will go too high. Certainly, first quarterback off the board in this draft is who?
I think it's the first one, Cam Ward. I think, but the Sanders camp is really putting on like they're working behind the scenes and trying to
get, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, imagine that. I was as shocked as anybody. But and look, I actually think Shedeur has a lot of interesting skills. Like, he's accurate, he's tough, he's, I think, got a good football mind and a natural feel for the passing game. He also takes a lot of sacks and doesn't have a crazy arm. And there's some stuff that they both scream second round to me, if we're being just like honest. Whereas Drake May, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels were first rounders. Michael Penix, Nix, and JJ McCarthy to me were closer to second round picks. I know they go higher, but I mean, if we're just going to give them like realistic grades. So to me, those guys are both second round picks who will probably go high. But I haven't yet heard that one team for Sanders that I feel pretty good about. I think Cam either goes 2 or 3. I don't know which or how it goes, but
all right. Well, we generally try to keep this to about an hour. We're bumping up against it, so like I want to give you the stage for your. I know Mizzou basketball has been in your blood for a long time. I know you're loving this season. What's the hot take here?
Man, I should have been thinking a little harder about this. Like I'm not. Well, let's say this. I'm not worried. Like the young guys are going to transfer away, or you know what I mean? Like that thing early in the year, I'm kind of thinking like, I can see one of these guys sort of not feeling it or whatever, but they've all contributed at least a little bit. I know we're warming up to hot takes here, but man, I did not think T.O. Barrett would play a minute of significant ball this year, and see him in crunch time a couple times. That's been fun. He's going to be a fan favorite for the next 3.5 years. Got to love to see what he's going to do. But man, I knew Caleb Grill was a good shooter. I didn't know he was a good shooter. Not this good for sure. I remember watching that game against North Carolina when he was at Iowa State. I'm like, who in the is this guy? But that's the last time I've seen anything close to what he's doing now. It's a fun team to watch. 2 or 3 guys can have off nights and they still win. It's amazing,
Yeah, no question. Caleb Grill goes all Mark Atkins, and here we go. All right, I lied. Drew King has one more for you. I'm not asking this, so you can answer however you want. Super Bowl. Drew, what's your Super Bowl pick?
I did. I think I just turned my score in about 3 hours ago. 28-25 Chiefs was my pick, and I think Mahomes has had Fangio's number, that's a good defense, but like he's just kind of doesn't lose too much. And I just feel like I think the Eagles are going to come out and be like we're going to score first and we're going to try to take this game over. It's going to play out kind of similar to the last time where the Chiefs just find a way through the rat holes and get there at the end.
Well,
It's amazing to watch. I don't say it just because you're a Chiefs fan, insufferable Chiefs fan. No, I mean,
right. I was going to say, I should have warned you before you answered that your easy way to never do this podcast again is just pick the Eagles. Like you would have had an easy out. Just said Eagles 41-10, and I would have never had to do this.
Fly. No, I can't do it. I Eagles fans absolutely hate me right now because I moved the Commander. Ooh, hot take. Here we go. I moved the Commanders ahead of them before the NFC Championship game because I'm like, why not? It's power rankings. Nobody's dying, Oh, I came close, I think. I'm not sure, but they don't like me.
All right,
I'm wearing their Eagles colors, too. I don't know. Go figure.
So am I guess, actually. So, all right, man. Well, appreciate your time. I know you're busy. I will hold you to everything you said and text you if any of it ends up being wrong.
I insist. That's the only way I like it.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, buddy. See you, man.
All right, that is Eric Edholm, NFL.com and NFL Media. Follow his mock drafts, his draft coverage. Mizzou guy, look, Eric's honest. Hey, mock drafts, all that. It's kind of a dart throw at this time, but does his research, does his homework. We'll get more and more accurate and good information leading up to the draft. And like I said, he's a Mizzou guy. He's one of you. You can interact with him on our message boards and stuff like that at times too. So make sure to check out all of his stuff. Appreciate him taking the time. Drew King got a little half night off, but that's okay. He's got to go to St. Louis tomorrow, Knoxville Wednesday, post-game show Wednesday night, post-game show Saturday night. We'll make up for that. One more time, remind you on the way out the door, get your insurance from our buddy James Carlton at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, Missouri. If you live in Missouri or Illinois, just give James' office a call, 314-961-4800. Just give him a chance. Let him give you a quote. You don't have to take it. But I think you probably will because he's going to do everything he can to save you money. And he is also going to, if he gives you that quote, make a little donation to Mizzou's NIL efforts. And again, help out people who, see things the same as you do. James, just like Eric, big Mizzou fan, power Mizzou guy. So give your business to one of your own. Get in touch with James. Once again, carltoninsurance.net, 314-961-4800. Before you check out here, like, comment, subscribe, share, do all those things. If you're listening on the podcast, say a nice thing or two about us. I will talk to you right back here tomorrow morning. Thanks for hanging out.